Good morning, everyone. We will be getting started shortly. Please be sure to turn on your closed captioning as individual captioning is available. If you are viewing this meeting through a mobile device, you can access closed captioning through the Chicago Park District's YouTube page to view the meeting with captions. A link to the Park District's YouTube page is on the screen and can be found in the chat. Would everyone please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. On this day, Wednesday, January 26, 2022, at 11:30 a.m., the regular board meeting of the Chicago Park District is being held remotely in an effort to protect the public's health and in adherence with Senate Bill 2135, Article 15, Section 15-5, the amended Open Meetings Act, 5 Illinois CS 120, Section 7, subsection E4, and in continued observance of the governor's orders pursuant to COVID-19 Executive Order Number 97 and the gubernatorial disaster proclamation filed on January 7, 2022. As such, the district has deemed it necessary to continue to hold its meetings virtually. Will the secretary please take a roll call of the commissioners?
Of course. Commissioner Edwards?
Here.
Commissioner Netsky?
Here.
Commissioner Munoz?
Here.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Here.
Commissioner Valle?
Here.
And Vice President King?
Here.
Quorum is present. Please let the record reflect that the Interim General Superintendent and CEO, Rosa Escarino, is also in attendance.
This meeting will please come to order. First on the agenda under General Business, Certificate of Publication of the Chicago Park District 2022 Annual Appropriation Ordinance. This will be marked as received and filed by the Secretary. Also under General Business, Certificate of Filing of the Chicago Park District 2022 Annual Appropriation Ordinance with the clerks of Cook and DuPage counties. This will also be marked as received and filed by the Secretary. Next, approval of the minutes from the regular scheduled meeting held on December 1st, 2021. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Will the Secretary please take a roll call for the adoption of this matter?
Yes, Commissioner Edwards?
Aye.
Commissioner Netsky?
Aye.
Commissioner Munoz?
Aye.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Aye.
Commissioner Valle?
Aye.
And Vice President King?
Aye.
Motion carried and the minutes are adopted.
Under Acknowledging Excellence, recognition of Park District staff excellence during the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic, we will hear from our Interim General Superintendent, Rosa Escarino, regarding this wonderful work.
Good morning, Vice President King and commissioners. Thank you. This month, the Chicago Park District would like to use the Acknowledging Excellence portion of the board meeting to recognize the essential workers that have kept our parks running safely throughout these challenging past 2 years. Parks are a critical haven for so many Chicagoans, and I want to thank all of our workers that have made sure that we continue our programming efforts and to ensure that we continue making parks a welcoming place for families and kids during the COVID pandemic. Early on, nearly 2 years ago, we suspended in-person programming and quickly pivoted to our virtual sessions, making sure that our services were still available to all Chicagoans, even during the darkest days of the pandemic. And when we reopened in late 2020, our essential workers, from our security guards to our rec leaders to our landscapers, who countless continue to do more. We want to make sure, we also made sure that we opened safely and did things effectively. So thanks to their incredible efforts and to the leadership of our COVID committee, we have been able to continue providing high levels of services during these ever-changing times, and continuing to evolve and ensure that we are implementing programming with safety for our workers and patrons as a priority. In particular, I want to thank our employees for their diligence and hard work, specifically during this latest Omicron surge. Thank goodness we are seeing this surge now subside, but I want to take the time to recognize the incredible workers at the Park District that really stepped in and really supported one another during this time. I want to also thank our employees for their high vaccination rates. We have seen near complete compliance with our employee vaccine mandate, which came into effect on December 15th, and has helped to ensure that this latest surge did not impact us even greater because of our high compliance rate, and ensuring that we're keeping all the safety regulations at the parks in place. I also want to thank our park employees that worked quickly and diligently to implement the vaccine mandates for patrons at parks in a way that prioritized safety while ensuring that youth have access to the critical after-school programs and other essential services. Most importantly, I simply want to thank our employees for providing safe and essential services to our kids and families during this historic dark time for our entire city. Thanks to our employees' commitment to safety, we were able to get through, and we are continuing to come out ahead, and we are preparing to reopen fully in 2022. Our essential workers are the best part of the Park District, which has never been more clear than during the COVID crisis. So on behalf of the entire administration and the Board of Commissioners, I want to commend our employees for their hard work and dedication to the people of this great city. And while we are still in a pandemic, I know our better days are ahead, thanks to all the efforts that have been implemented. To just provide all of you, the members of the board, a quick update on the numbers, I want to welcome Isaac Reichman, who is Special Advisor to the Superintendent, to elaborate just a little bit more on that data. So with that, let me have Isaac just provide you a couple minutes of information. Isaac?
Great. Thank you, Superintendent, and good morning, Vice President King and members of the Board of Commissioners. My name is Isaac Reichman, and I am the Special Advisor to the Interim General Superintendent and CEO. I am assisting the Superintendent on a variety of topics, including our response to the COVID-19 pandemic, and she has asked that I provide a few additional details. As the Superintendent mentioned, we have had a very successful rollout of our employee vaccine mandate, which came into effect on December 15th of last year. Under this policy, employees must be either fully vaccinated or commit to twice weekly testing. And I am proud to report that approximately 90% of Park District employees are fully vaccinated. Employees that are unvaccinated may continue testing twice weekly until March 1st. At which time everyone must be either fully vaccinated or have an approved exemption. In order to support vaccination and encourage booster shots for our employees, we have been sharing vaccine clinic information regularly, and we are holding vaccine clinics next week at parks in the North, South, and Central region to make sure that our employees have the opportunity and our patrons have the opportunity to get vaccinated or boosted. We fully expect full compliance by the March 1st deadline, at which time everyone must be either fully vaccinated or have an approved exemption. I want to reiterate the superintendent's point and thank all of our employees for their hard work during this very difficult time. And thank you all for the time.
Thank you. And with that, I just want to say one last shout out to the committee, who is made up of our leadership, and on a very regular basis, several times a week sometimes, they are meeting to ensure that we are staying on top of safety requirements and are providing regular check-ins to me and to the entire leadership to ensure that we are on course to keeping our residents, our kids, and certainly our employees safe. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments or questions from the commissioners?
Vice President King, I want to make a comment.
course.
I just want to commend all of the staff, as Rosa mentioned, the essential workers. We're living in such uncertain times, and that adds a dynamic of challenge to the work that you do, that it's not even real. And so I not only commend you, I thank you for your labor of love as you continue to serve our communities and as you continue to serve our constituents. Thank you for everything that you do. And I do want to say, make sure you're taking care of yourselves as well.
I'd like to echo the same sentiment. Thank you all. You guys are doing a fantastic job, and we're not out of the woods yet with this pandemic, and you continue to do this work and have made adjustments in everything you do to these past couple of years. So to keep supporting community. So again, also just as grateful as I'm sure the rest of the commissioners are for all your service.
Thank you very much. I'm so happy that we were able to acknowledge excellence in this way. So thank you, Interim General Superintendent, for doing this, and to all the staff, everyone at the Park Districts. Thank you for managing this so well, and we look forward to it continuing to be managed, because as Commissioner Munoz just said, we're not out of it yet. So we look forward to that. Thank you very, very much. And now we will move on to presentations from departments. And first, we have a presentation from the Office of Inspector General, just wanted to make a note that we will follow this presentation with another presentation from Interim General Superintendent. And so I ask that any comments or questions be held until the end of that second presentation so that we can get the two things in context. Thank you.
Good morning, Vice President King, Commissioners, Interim Superintendent, Park District employees, and residents of the City of Chicago. My name is Allison Perona. I'm the Interim Inspector General. I was appointed as an Interim Inspector General in September of 2021. I previously served the Park District as Inspector General from 2012 through 2015. 2021 presented some very unique challenges for the office. There was a high caseload due to investigations of misconduct in the Aquatics Department, and there was a significant turnover in staff at the Office of Inspector General. In the late summer and fall of 2021, we brought in two specialized investigative teams to aid the Office of Inspector General in investigating, finalizing the investigations, making recommendations to management. One of those teams was the law firm of Franzik, and the other investigative team was two temporary employees who were retired Chicago detectives who worked at the Children's Advocacy Center for over 15 years each and brought some specialized knowledge and training of victim-sensitive interviewing to the table during the course of these investigations. Next slide, please. In total, 48 cases were investigated and results reported to board and management pertaining to the Aquatics Department investigation. Many of these allegations dated back to 2020. And I would like to note that while I'm saying there's 48 cases that were investigated, it's individual cases. It does not mean that there were 48 different subjects or individuals that were investigated. Some Park District employees or former employees actually had multiple cases. So individual investigation numbers were assigned to that, and that is what you see here with the number 48. Throughout these investigations, we made sure that we made every effort to handle all of these investigations in a very timely and sensitive manner, and to make sure that we respected the privacy of the people that were involved in this. So today I am not going to be getting into any of the specific allegations about any of the cases. Again, the goal is, as I mentioned in November, is we certainly don't want to re-victimize anybody. Of the 48 investigations that were completed, 29 of the allegations were sustained. We found sufficient information to sustain the allegations and then make recommendations to management for disciplinary or administrative action. One thing that we found during the course of these investigations were that many individuals resigned during the course of the investigation. So management would be actually unable to take some type of disciplinary action. In the cases where employees had already left the employment of the Park District or had in fact left, terminated their own employment, the OIG recommended that they be designated as do not rehire. I would like to note at this point that in all of these cases, management responded promptly, took action, and in 100% of the cases, followed the OIG's recommendation for disciplinary or administrative action. I would also like to note here that 19 allegations were determined to be, of the 19 of the 48 were determined not to be not sustained or unfounded. And of those, I'll just break it down a little bit so you understand what we mean by not sustained or unfounded. In 5 of the cases that were unfounded, we contacted the person who was supposed to be the victim, and that person said that didn't happen. What basically happened here is we had third parties reported that there was misconduct, and then when we checked with the person who was supposed to have been subjected to the misconduct, they said it didn't happen. We attempted to validate the complaint other ways. We were not able to validate it. In 9 cases, the person who was named as the potential victim refused to cooperate with the Office of Inspector General. Where we could, what we did was we informed those people that they could come forward to the Office of Inspector General at any time in the future. We gave them contact information, for the Chicago Police Department, Department of Children and Family Services as well. And then in 5 cases, there was just insufficient evidence to make a finding against the employees. And as I note on the bottom of the slide here, that in 100% of the cases where it was appropriate, reports, the allegations of misconduct were reported to the Department of Children and Family Services and or the Chicago Police Department. So that pretty much sums up the reactive activities that we had in reaction to the allegations. There were also proactive activities performed by the Office of Inspector General regarding Aquatics Department investigation. Primarily that we have been a partner with the Park District in developing the Office of Prevention and Accountability. And I know the CEO, General Superintendent, is going to speak to that after my presentation. But so we're working twofold on this, working on the reactive end, and again, working with management to give employees more tools to have speedier timed responses to anything that's an allegation of this sort. Next slide, please. Despite the majority of investigations focusing on the Aquatics Department in 2021, the Office of Inspector General was also able to complete numerous other investigations with the investigators. Some of them dealt with contractor compliance, making sure contractors were in conformity with the contract. There was one sexual assault case that was not an Aquatics Department case. It was in community recreation. This was a park supervisor and an adult female employee. And here, again, just like the Aquatics Department cases, management took the Office of Inspector General's recommendation and appropriately imposed discipline and or administrative action. We reviewed job qualifications of various positions, made recommendations on that. We had one residency violation, and we also examined several cases of partner misconduct or non-compliance by partners. And when I mean by partners, I'm not speaking of contractors. This is specifically Park Advisory Council members that had been accused of some type of misconduct or non-compliance with Park District rules and regulations. Next slide, please. The audit team in 2021 completed 5 audits or reviews throughout the year. One of the things that they looked at, which is of high value to the Park District, was asset management and controls. High value assets should have asset tags on them so that they can be tracked to prevent theft, ensure accountability. These are ongoing reviews, and we continue to work with management on that to ensure the security of high-ticket items or easily stolen items. The audit team also did some Park Advisory Council reviews in 2021, notably monitored some of the Park Council elections, reviewed Park Advisory Councils for compliance, and also in several cases examined the Park Advisory Council's handling of funds. Next slide, please. In 2021, the Office of Inspector General was able to hire an assistant compliance officer. That position had been vacant for a while. Compliance review and audit statistics for the second half of 2021 reflect increased activity over a prior year because we did have an officer now in place. This officer works with and monitors activity in hiring as per the Shackman decree, the release, especially the release from the Shackman decree, and it's as the parameters are set out in the Park District's employment plan. The Park District's employment plan went into effect in 2014 and has not been revised since that time. In 2022, one of the major projects for the hiring compliance monitor is going to be to participate with the Park District in reviewing and updating the employment plan. Next slide. Just a quick overview of some statistics here. You'll see there's as you look at this, it looks like there was a marked increase in cases in the Office of Inspector General in the fourth quarter of 2021. What this is actually reflective of is that all of the Aquatics Department cases were assigned unique numbers in the fourth quarter of 2021. Prior to that, they had all been consolidated under 2 case numbers in order to ensure accountability and to better track the investigations and any recommendations that the Office of Inspector General was making to management. They were assigned individual numbers, and that's what shows that increase in case numbers. So most of the cases that were actually opened in the fourth quarter were already existing but did not have individual case numbers. The closing statistics there in the fourth quarter also reflect the volume of cases of Aquatics Department investigations that were closed and reported. Next slide, please. Audits here too, as I mentioned before, audits were performed throughout the year. The audits were reported in the fourth quarter. A total of 5 audits were closed, 4 were opened. We have 5 currently open right now, and we are working with management and with the audit committee to ensure that we have robust, meaningful, value-added audits scheduled through 2022. Next slide. And then briefly, as I talked about here, the first and second quarters are not reflecting any activity for hiring compliance monitoring, one because of COVID and interviewing, hiring was curtailed during that time, and then also the fact that the hiring compliance monitor was hired over the summer and has now engaged in a very robust oversight program of the hiring activities at the Park District. And then the final slide, please. I'm just again, here's the OIG's contact information. We do get a lot of contacts via the electronic, the online hotline, which the number is the email or the address, the URL is right there for everybody. You can also call our confidential hotline. With that, I will ask if there's any questions.
Actually, instead of doing the questions now, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Interim Inspector General. Let's move on to our next section on the agenda, and then we can do questions or comments after that. So we have next under presentations from departments, the proposed amendments to Chapter 4 of the Code of the Chicago Park District to update the Human Rights Ordinance and establish the Office of Prevention and Accountability. Interim General Superintendent Rosa Escareno will address the commissioners.
Thank you again, and good morning. It's still morning, Vice President King and members of the Board of Commissioners. First, I want to start by thanking the Interim Inspector General, Allison Perona, for her great work in partnership with the Park District. As she has just detailed, the release of the OIG's 2021 annual report provides an overview of the ongoing and nearly completed investigation into misconduct within the aquatics department at the Park District. Since I became interim superintendent, one of my primary goals, and I know this is a primary goal of the board as well, has been to see this investigation through and to act as swiftly and decisively to build a park district that prioritizes accountability, safety, and transparency. The first step in accomplishing that goal is by supporting independent investigations and actions, and acting on the recommendations that came from those efforts. While these investigations have peeled back the layers of problematic behavior, and in some cases criminal behavior, that should have never been allowed to take place, today I am pleased to say that we have taken action. The OIG annual report released today details 48 investigations conducted as part of the aquatics investigation. And in every instance, we took the necessary disciplinary steps as recommended by the IG. Since the beginning of the IG investigation, 15 employees have been terminated, resigned while under investigation, or were asked to resign due to the violations uncovered in the ongoing IG investigation and or the Arnold and Porter report released in November. Our path to recovery begins with accountability. Our actions must speak louder than words, do speak louder than words, and send a clear message that misconduct is not and will not be tolerated at the Chicago Park District. To truly build a park district that prioritizes the safety of all employees and patrons, we must do much more. We must establish an organizational structure that makes sure a failure of this magnitude never happens again. That is why I am proud today to formally introduce code amendments that will establish the new Office of Prevention and Accountability. As you know, at the December board meeting, you provided funding for this new office as part of the 2022 budget, providing the office with $617,000 in funding and establishing 5 positions to start. We now present for your consideration code amendments to establish this office, giving it the authority to bring about the long-term prevention of misconduct while ensuring that all wrongdoers will be held accountable. The first duties of this office will be as follows, and I want to just have the slide provided to you, which is the slide that actually we used at the December board meeting, just to give you some frame of reference as to what we had initially discussed, and now through the code, those actions will be established. So first, and most importantly, the office will be empowered to conduct independent, thorough, and fair investigations into alleged violations of the Human Rights Ordinance and related policies by employees or patrons, including discrimination, harassment, sexual misconduct, workplace violence, abuse and neglect of children or vulnerable adults, as well as retaliation. Second, following the completion of these investigations, the office will recommend penalties for misconduct. Third, the office will develop policies and procedures for the full intake and investigation of allegations of misconduct, ensuring that all employees and patrons understand their rights and know where to go for complaints. This will provide and ensure that anyone who feels they have been victimized are given that assurance of that their investigations will be fully investigated. Next, the office will be responsible for providing recommendations to the superintendent and to the Board of Commissioners to improve the methods for preventing violations of the Human Rights Ordinance. And finally, the office will be tasked with developing and maintaining relationships with community partners and stakeholders, including by the regular convening of experts in an advisory group capacity, and in order to stay up to date on best practices. It is critical that this office be given the independence to carry out these duties without interference from me or any other future superintendent. That is why it is explicitly prohibited for the superintendent to prevent, impair, or prohibit the office from initiating, carrying out, or completing any investigation. It is critical that this office is given the independence to carry out these duties without infringement from anyone. That is why, while the director of the office will report directly to the general superintendent, it is explicitly prohibited for the superintendent to prevent, impair, or prohibit the office from initiating, carrying out, or completing these investigations. Furthermore, the director will be hired with the advice and consent of the Board of Commissioners, and the office will be required to submit quarterly reports as well as an annual report to the board, both of which will be made public. This will ensure full transparency and accountability of the office. I want to thank all of the commissioners for your feedback and your engagement, which has been essential in developing this office. I also want to thank the outside experts such as Resilience and the Chicago Children's Advocacy Center that lent their expertise on this effort. To make this office as successful as possible, we need to hear from the community, which is why, upon your approval today, these code amendments will be open for public comment for a period of 45 days. We welcome honest feedback and a robust dialogue about this proposal. So again, more work to come and more improvements to be made, shall the community see fit. Before I welcome questions on today's code amendments, I want to make it clear that the establishment of this new office is only one part of the work to rebuild trust the community and our employees deserve. The Arnold and Porter report in particular made it clear that there were failures of management and organizational deficiencies throughout the Park District that contributed to this crisis. Therefore, we are taking a variety of steps to improve our organizational structure and recommit to training. As evident by our actions in response to the investigations outlined today, we are improving our disciplinary process and supporting stronger and consistent communication across the district to ensure that we're following through on any recommendations of discipline by the Inspector General into the future. Earlier this month, we also held a 2-week aquatics conference designed to give our beaches and pools employees the tools that they need to be successful as a department and to set strong ethical standards of respect and leadership. The first ever event addressed many of our organizational deficiencies throughout the 30 virtual sessions and team building exercise. It was very well received and an example of how we plan to move forward. Additionally, we are working closely with our entire community recreation department to examine our policies and procedures to see where additional improvements need to be made. We are having face-to-face, honest discussions about the issues and ways to improve and turn the page for the better. To date, we have held 8 roundtables with current and former lifeguards, natatorium instructors, other park staff, and parents of current and prospective lifeguards. Throughout this work, we have already made a number of organizational improvements and are working to address the systematic issues raised in these discussions. And I want to just make it very clear for parents, I hear your concerns, and we want to ensure and give you the confidence that your kids, either in our aquatics program or in our lifeguard programs will be safe. And we will continue to be transparent with our parents about the progress that we're making, because that's what they have requested, and I plan to deliver on that. We owe it to our employees and our parents and the kids that use our parks to change the culture, and we are working hard to do just that. It is clear in my 3 months as superintendent that the greatest resource of the Park District is its workforce, our employees who run our programs, that serve the public, and that make this agency truly great. By creating this office, we are sending a message about the values that we place on the people that matter most to the Chicago Park District. And those are our employees and the patrons who place their trust in us every single day. Thank you all for your support. And I, along with, I believe the IG, will welcome your questions.
Thank you very much. And I would ask the commissioner, if you do have questions or comments, please go ahead with them now.
I just have a comment. I just want to thank Rosa and Allison for all the progress you've made in such a short period of time, not just in setting up the office, but really creating a culture at the Park District to make sure, everyone knows that, that any kind of sexual misconduct or harassment or abuse will not be tolerated in the Park District. And at the same time, supporting and uplifting all the great staff who make up the Park District and all the, and serve our communities and families. So thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you. I just also wanted to mention too, is part of the OIG's, the OIG's main function is to maintain integrity of operations at the Park District. One of the primary goals that I've added to staff, and I'm making sure that this is infused, and this is echoing what the CEO just said, is the goal is also restoration of trust. Restoration of trust in Park District operations, restoration of trust in the Office of Inspector General. So we will be working independently and with management on that goal in 2022. And closing these investigations and continuing with any others that may arise is part of that.
Any further questions or comments? I'd like to just note the fact that we are not voting on anything today. As the interim general superintendent mentioned, this is a matter that will be open for public comment and additional conversation. And we will be voting as a board later on final changes to the code pending that public participation. I would like to add for the commissioners, I just want to point out and just that we've got two tremendous people here in our interim general superintendent and our interim inspector general. And the lift that they've done in putting this together has really been tremendous. And I also want to say on behalf of the commissioners, if I may, how grateful we are for the level of transparency and the level of engagement that you have had with the Board of Commissioners regarding the matters that have occurred over the course of the last several months, as well as your reporting, as well as this great plan moving forward. So thank you very much for that engagement, for your hard work and effort. And we are looking forward to the realization of this terrific office and terrific plan of action. Under communication and reports, there is nothing to present. Next is the people in the park section. Will the secretary please call the names of those who have signed up to speak?
I sure will. We ask that you please limit your comments to 2 minutes. We also ask that those making comments before the board, please lower your electronic devices, including television, so that we may hear you clearly and do not experience any frequency interference. Our first 4 speakers who have signed up to speak regarding Jackson Park, we have Emily Dupree, Avi Schwab, Susanna Ribstein, and Louise McCurry. So we'll get our first speaker on the line, Emily Dupree. Hello?
Hello, yes?
Hi, is this Emily?
Yes, this is.
Hi, good afternoon. You are live at the Chicago Park District Board meeting. You may present your comments to the board now.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm a resident of the South Side, also a lover of our parks. I recently learned that a number of park advisory councils across the city either have or are considering having a volunteer work requirement as a condition of membership in the PAC. And I'm here today to urge you all to consider formally prohibiting these kinds of work requirements. And I think there are 3 good reasons to do so. The first is that they disenfranchise disabled people from PAC membership, thereby silencing the voices of an important category of park user. Volunteer days often involve physical labor, but as we know, anyone with chronic pain or mobility issues, as just a few examples, can't always perform this labor as easily as their able peers. But disability should, of course, not be a bar to membership in any of the city's PACs. Second, a volunteer requirement excludes people in Chicago with criminal histories. In order to volunteer, the required waivers include an attestation that the volunteer has never been convicted of a felony. But especially in a city like Chicago, which targets and criminalizes Black residents, such a requirement for volunteering and therefore PAC membership is wrong. It's part of the many structural ways that we entrench racism into our everyday citywide functions. Lastly, a volunteer requirement, which, let's face it, is an unpaid labor requirement, excludes anyone who's struggling to make ends meet with numerous jobs strung together and therefore little free time.
30 seconds remaining.
It produces a tacit poll tax on being a voting member of a local PAC. In short, volunteer requirements entrench a certain image of the good PAC member, ready, able, and willing to work for free, having never been targeted by our sprawling prison industry. In other words, the white leisure class. For these reasons, something as small as a volunteer requirement turns out to be a matter of urgent concern, especially for a board that's meant to represent all park users.
Please make your closing remarks.
Unfairness one step further in formally prohibiting volunteer requirements from PAC membership.
Thank you so much, Emily. We'll release you from the call and you may rejoin the meeting through one of those links provided. And we'll get our next speaker on the line, Avi Schwab. And please let the record reflect that Avi has submitted supporting documentation, which you may find in your board packets.
Hey, this is Avi.
Hi, Avi. Good afternoon. You are live at the Chicago Park District Board meeting. You may present your comments to the board now.
Thank you very much for your time. I began attending Jackson Park Advisory Council meetings in September 2021 after the Park District announced and less than 24 hours later installed gates on the entrances of Wooded Isle. I, like many other attendees that night, was livid at the abrupt change to a park that I've frequented for over 20 years. After my experience at that first meeting, I committed to being more involved in the park. In addition to learning about prior conversations regarding gates, I also learned that night about the xenophobia that's been pervasive in the GPAC organization. During the meeting, it was almost impossible for attendees to comment, points of order were wholly ignored, and the process was applied sparingly, and only for the benefit of the board. After the meeting, I was told that the committee was warned of rabble-rousers and disruptors coming to create mischief and get revenge. At the October meeting, I took my first steps to becoming more involved. A bylaws change was discussed, and I volunteered to serve on the subcommittee to draft that change. I was invited to a 90-plus minute meeting on a weekday afternoon, which I was only able to attend because I'm fortunate to have a flexible work schedule. The resulting proposal, with my name included, is attached to the December JPAC newsletter. At the December meeting, the initial bylaws change was brought to a vote, but a new change was proposed that greatly expanded the time commitment necessary for membership, which is also in your attachments. The new change was, to my surprise, presented as being unanimously supported by the bylaws committee. I was not invited to any discussion of the new proposal, nor did the JPAC board provide any detail on how the proposal was formulated. After I raised my concerns, I was notified by the chair that my membership on the committee was a typo that happened to be committed to the minutes multiple times.
30 seconds remaining.
And that we appoint bylaws committee's members who have legal expertise or were previous bylaw writers to serve on the committee. This requirement was never brought up before, and my credentials were never discussed. I've written and edited bylaws for nonprofits, community organizations, and professional groups. Given my personal experience with the current JPAC board, I have zero confidence in their ability to fairly enforce the proposed requirements. I believe the proposal is heavy-handed, discriminatory, and arbitrary power grab, and I urge the district to intervene. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Avi. We'll release you from the call, and you may rejoin the meeting through one of those links provided. And we'll get our next speaker on the line, Susanna Ribstein. And please let the record reflect that Susanna has also submitted supporting documentation, which you may find in your board packets. It's ringing. It looks like we got her voicemail. Let's try one more time and then we'll move on.
Hello. Hi.
Hi,
Yes.
is this Susanna?
Yes, it is.
Hi, good afternoon. You are live at the Chicago Park District Board meeting. You may present your comments to the board now.
Hi, I'm a JPAC member and a resident of South Shore. You have in your packet a letter signed by 20 unaffiliated residents of the neighborhood surrounding Jackson Park. Many of us are members of JPAC, and we're all frequent users of the park. I also want to say that several other folks requested to speak here on related topics and were denied because they signed this letter. As described by Avi before me, JPAC leadership has worked secretly to propose a vague amendment to its bylaws that would greatly expand the requirements to achieve voting membership, doubling the number of meetings required and adding a 3 times a year volunteer work requirement. In addition to the procedural issues outlined by Avi, and as discussed by Emily, this change is discriminatory against people with disabilities, those who work full-time or more, primary caregivers, those with eviction records. Many of those groups are protected classes under local, state, federal human rights laws. And they also describe the vast majority of working families who actually use Jackson Park. JPAC leadership made it clear in their actions surrounding this proposal that it was intentionally discriminatory, designed to exclude, quote, newcomers who only want to voice opinions and they don't want to put in work. JPAC is a park advisory council. Providing a venue for voicing opinions is why it exists. This amendment undermines the fundamentally inclusive nature of PACs in the Park District as a whole. JPAC's failure to follow a democratic process to get here is what caused us to turn to the Park District. We're requesting that CPD intervene to delay voting on this amendment until proper procedure is followed per JPAC's bylaws. There's specifics in the letter that you have.
30
we also
seconds.
asked that the Park District staff member be present at the next JPAC meeting on February 14th to make sure that the group's bylaws and parliamentary procedure are followed. However, a Park District source was quoted in the Hyde Park Herald yesterday that JPAC's bylaws require simply a majority on bylaws amendments when in fact it clearly requires a 2/3 majority. So we want to make sure that's corrected and hope that doing that here will enable the Park District to provide unbiased oversight that is actually in alignment with JPAC's bylaws.
Please make closing remarks.
Help. I believe we can get JPAC back on track as an organization that is truly, actually welcoming to our community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susanna. We'll release you from the call at this time, and you can rejoin the meeting through one of those links provided. Our final speaker on Jackson Park, we have Louise McCurry. And please let the record reflect that Louise has submitted supporting documentation as well, which you may find in your board packets. And we'll get Louise on the line. Hello, is this Louise?
Hello.
Hi, Louise. You are live at the Chicago Park District Board meeting. You may present your comments to the board now.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you, board, for inviting us to speak this morning. It is a true honor to be able to come and bring to you the values and concerns about Jackson Park. I am Louise McCurry, the JPAC president. We have been a PAC since 1983, very proudly, first PAC in the system. We've had 38 years of pretty steady membership of about 15 to 20 active volunteers. With the closing of the Obama Center lawsuit to stop the Obama Center, our membership and our attendees suddenly quadrupled to over 110 attendees. We are most grateful to Maria Stone, who came to our meetings and who answered questions, and to Park Security, who came to control the disruptions and the disruptive behavior during the meetings. We are hard at work at studying the best practices and bylaws of adjacent PACs, as well as PACs, large PACs throughout the city, so that we can meet the needs of our new 110 attendees. Third, we would like to say thank you enormously to our wonderful new track and field, which is used by hundreds of community members every day. The one request from the community is that we try to remove the ice and snow each day, because people are out running and walking on that track, whether it's during snow or during inclement weather. They love it. Third, finally, we are inviting all of you to join with us as we celebrate the 130th anniversary of the signing of the agreement between Japan and the Chicago Park District to maintain the Garden of the Phoenix and Phoenix Pavilion. Finally, we are really proud to sponsor Girls' Day of Play, which is a day of bringing fitness and sports to girls in the park. JPAC is proud to be a sponsor and to celebrate girls becoming major forces of fitness in our Jackson Park. Finally, thank you for your continued partnership and support of PACs. We couldn't do the good work we do in the park without all the support from the park board. So thank you so much. And again, we welcome you to join us.
Please make your closing remarks.
The anniversary of the signing of the anniversary of the agreement between Japan and the United States, supporting the Garden of the Phoenix and the Phoenix Pavilion. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Louise. We'll release you from the call, and you may rejoin the meeting through one of those links provided. And our next two speakers, regarding an item on the agenda for the Colmar Park renaming, we have Daniel Eagle Weiss and Daniel Pogoszelski. And we'll get the first Daniel on the line. Daniel has submitted supporting documentation, which you may find in your board packets.
Yes, hello.
Hi, is this Daniel?
It is, yes.
Hi, good afternoon. You are live at the Chicago Park District Board meeting. You may present your comments to the board now.
Great. Well, first of all, thank you, Interim Superintendent and Commissioners, and a special thanks to Commissioner Valle for your efforts and Sarah Gelder for coordinating and giving me a call. My name is Daniel Eagle Weiss. I'm an Illinois attorney, community member, and lover of our parks. The motto, Herbs and Orto, makes our city unique and our community strong. I speak today on an important topic in our community, around our city, and in this country, honoring Holocaust victims, spreading love and acceptance, and stamping out hate. Specifically, I rise forward to rededicate Colmar Park in Chicago's Old Irving Park neighborhood in honor of Gertrude Colmar. A park is a place where people and communities congregate, learn, and grow. As such, I speak up with a unique opportunity to let the Park District educate the public, grow the popularity of a beloved local park and playground, and honor the struggle and history of one of the world's finest authors. Tomorrow, January 27th, is Holocaust Remembrance Day. April, at the meeting where you all can vote on this effort, is Genocide Awareness Month. Gertrude Colmar was the greatest German, Jewish, and female poet of her era, and perhaps of recent modern history. Due to systemic hate and bigotry, her life was cut short and she was murdered in the Holocaust alongside her friends, family, and community. As a point of reference, Colmar Park is currently named after a town, Colmar, which no longer exists. It once
30
sat
seconds remaining.
on the border. We plan to organize educational programs at Colmar Park in partnership with the Illinois Holocaust Museum and numerous other organizations who have explicitly signaled their support. In that light, we are asking you to please move to put a rededication of Colmar Park on 45 days notice to the public, and then to vote yes. Let this park shine as a light on the evil of hate and the limitless power of hope. With your voices and your votes, we can accomplish, educate, grow, and love. The people of Chicago deserve that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniel. We'll release you from the call and you may rejoin the meeting through one of those links provided. And we'll get our next speaker on the line, Daniel Pokoszewski. Daniel has also submitted supporting documentation, which you may find in your board packets.
The number you dialed has.
It looks like we got voicemail. We'll try that one more time. Hello, is this Daniel?
Daniel, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you just fine. You are live at the Chicago Park District Board meeting. You may present your comments to the board now.
Thank you so much for allowing me to speak. I'll begin with that the most important function of public space is to build community. And it's with this value in mind that we are advocating for redesignating Colmar Park to honor the accomplished poet and Holocaust victim, Gertrude Colmar. This name uniquely recognizes our aspirations to come together as a multicultural and multi-ethnic community that firmly unites against anti-Semitism, while also paying homage to this neighborhood's past as a sanctuary for displaced persons after the Second World War. I, like a significant number of others in the Chicago metropolitan area, had family killed in the Holocaust. I am the grandson of a survivor of the Auschwitz concentration camp, Jerzy Modelski, the same place where his father Zygmunt and Gertrude both died. The immense trauma that was unleashed as a result of World War II is horrific in its scope. It's important for us to spread the awareness of the unprecedented scale of the suffering unleashed by the Germans and the Soviets on the diverse peoples of Central and Eastern Europe. Peoples of all creeds and confessions were targeted by an inhuman system which saw them as impediments to a new order which strove to suppress diversity, independence of thought, and personal freedom. Gertrude Colmar was a literary giant whose life was tragically cut short at the hands of the Nazis. Her work continues to inspire people all over the world.
30 seconds remaining.
Yes?
You can continue, just 30 more seconds.
Born as Gertrude Kat Hojesz in Berlin, her surname harkens back to her father's family connections to Hojesz in Greater Poland, a town that, like Gertrude, was the victim of Nazi oppression. We are seeking yours, the board's, and planning staff support in dedicating Colmar Park to honor this poet, and we also ask you that you permit the installation of historical plaques explaining the history of Gertrude Colmar, as well as the town which suffered so much and which her family was connected to. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Daniel. We'll release you from the call and you may rejoin the meeting through one of those links provided. Okay, we'll get our next two speakers on the line. We have David Kostolansky, who just this morning submitted a document that, so you should have it in your email. And then Patrick Donovan, who has also submitted supporting documentation. So we'll get Dave Kostolansky on the line.
Hello.
Hi, Dave. Can you hear me okay?
Hello.
Hi, Dave. There is a little bit of feedback. If you're watching the board meeting, if you can just step away from your computer.
I did.
Perfect. I can hear you loud and clear. You're live at the Chicago Park District Board meeting. You may present your comments to the board now.
Okay. Vice President King, Superintendent Escarino, Board of Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to speak today on behalf of the Lakeshore Park community. I want to commend senior staff LeVar, Tomlins, Arlo, the trades, and DNR for their winter efforts. Our commitment to the Park District community and city is demonstrated through volunteer efforts, taxes, and financial commitments from the PAC and Aldermen for our park enhancements. I took time to explain that the PACs are serious about partnering with the Park District and would appreciate the Park District fully keep their side of the partnership. We have several ongoing projects initially approved in 2018 and funding finalized in January of 2020, but haven't been completed. We are partnering with the Park District installing an inclusive adult wellness area. The contractor communicated the project was complete. It wasn't, nor was the damage they caused repaired. Most of the incomplete work could be done in a day. The community and local rehab facilities are eager to use this new inclusive wellness area, changing the entrance to the tennis courts to the south entrance, and the addition of 2 benches were to be added to the contractor's work, but they were not done. The second project, approved at the same time and to be funded by the PAC and Aldermen, is a natural play area inside the playground fenced area. That didn't happen. You have pictures in the documentation there, but little things we were going to put in. At a meeting in 2021, I presented 2 main areas of concern. Pat LeVar and his team came out to see one serious, significant issue, park accessibility. Only a small part of the issues have been addressed. A commitment from the Park District many times for soil samples and a meeting with the Director of Natural Resources and the CEO first planned for the summer of 2021 and then early fall to discuss the field at Lakeshore, a commitment to the Aldermen with no follow through.
Please make your closing remarks.
District consider our offer to explore construction of a new field house from private foundation funds that was never responded to when submitted earlier. We respectfully ask for the urgent support of completing these projects and the PAC role to be fully recognized.
Please make your closing remarks.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dave. We'll release you from the call now and you can rejoin the meeting through one of those links. And we'll get our next speaker on the line, Patrick Donovan. Please let the record reflect again that Patrick has submitted supporting documentation, which you may find in your packets.
Hello.
Hi, good afternoon. Is this Patrick?
Yes, it is.
Hi, you are live at the Chicago Park District Board meeting. You may present your comments to the board now.
All right, thank you. I'd like to thank the superintendent for bringing on Allison Corona. I'd also like to thank Allison for bringing in those 2 investigators who have expertise in the criminal sexual abuse of minors, and for the online complaint form that wasn't in existence before she got there. The Chicago Park District has failed miserably to protect the children that it employs. At North Avenue Beach, Chicago Park District employs 14, 15, and 16-year-old children. From what I'm able to FOIA, which wasn't easy, the Park District does not differentiate between its adult and juvenile employees. There are no protections set up for these juveniles, no separate rules, no safeguards, and that has led to the sexual exploitation of these children. I believe and will show that members of the Chicago Park District supervisory staff engaged in a form of grooming. Grooming techniques are the deliberate, carefully orchestrated acts and gestures offenders engage in. These acts are mostly legal and not harmful themselves, but later recognized as the offender's preparation process designed to desensitize and lower inhibitions, win trust and loyalty of the potential victims. They're designed to seduce and prepare potential victims for sexual relations and leave those victims confused about what has happened. In the case of juvenile victims, they may not recognize that they have been victimized for several years or may feel ashamed to come
30
forward.
seconds remaining.
As many of the lifeguards have attested to. Many parents are leery about coming forward and subjecting their kids to further trauma by testifying about these events. Just because there are no criminal complaints or the allegation has been sustained does not mean it hasn't occurred. Most groomers know this and take full advantage. As lifeguards can attest to, Chicago Park District supervising staff has created a sexually charged atmosphere which still exists today.
Please make your closing remarks.
what occurred at North Avenue Beach should not have happened.
Patrick, you're breaking up just a little bit.
No problem. What occurred at North Avenue Beach should not have happened. I'd encourage the board members to look at the 3 pod cameras that I sent to Chicago Park District staff and review the footage on there. That's it. All I have for today.
Thank you so much, Patrick. We appreciate your comments. We'll release you from the call now, and you may rejoin the meeting through one of those links provided. And our next 2 speakers today are Catherine Solman and Susan Mullen, both regarding Douglas Park. And we'll get Catherine on the line.
Hello.
Hi, good afternoon. Is this Catherine?
Yeah, this is she.
Hi, you are live at the Chicago Park District Board meeting. You may present your comments to the board now.
Okay, well, thank you for taking my call. I've been a North Lawndale resident and neighbor of Douglas Park for over 20 years. And this past summer, for 6 weeks, starting August 10th, Douglas Park was occupied by 2 different music festivals. The first was Lyrical Lemonade Summer Smash, which had 90,000 attendees. There were a lot of problems. Fans littered and urinated all over the neighborhood. During a storm, the crowd was evacuated to the Mount Sinai Hospital parking garage, where they continued to party, damaging cars and blocking visitors and healthcare workers from accessing the hospital. That same night, fans stormed the festival's bar, leaving many bartenders too terrified to come back to work the next day. It took over a week for the festival to pack up and go away. Trees were left broken and lying on the ground. A few days later, this process started all over again as Riot Fest took their turn, fencing off Douglas Park. Again, the neighborhood was overwhelmed. On the first night, an attendee lost his life to electrocution after falling from an overcrowded Pink Line platform. The last of Riot Fest's equipment was moved out on September 24th. The quality of life issues, security issues, and infrastructure issues are far beyond what most of you would be willing to put up with in your own neighborhoods. The usual comings and goings become impossible. There is no escape from the noise. There is no park to exercise in. North Lawndale has been through enough with 5 years of these festivals. We are used as a revenue stream for the Park District, but we don't see any benefits. Riot Fest and Lyrical Lemonade need to get out of Douglas Park. Find another location. We've done our time. As was stated at the beginning of the meeting, the parks are a critical haven for Chicago residents. A neighborhood with so many challenges should not lose access to our haven for 6 weeks of every summer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Catherine. We'll release you from the call now, and you may rejoin the meeting through one of those links provided. And we'll get our next speaker on the line, Susan Mullen.
Hello?
Hi, good afternoon. Is this Susan?
Yes, it is.
Hi, Susan. You are live at the Chicago Park District Board meeting. You may present your comments to the board now.
Okay, thank you. We have all come to realize that our public parks play an important role in people's physical and mental well-being. At this point, I think we all agree that the parks are more than a luxury. They are essential. I have heard members of this board acknowledge that for-profit private music festivals that close off Douglas Park for many weeks during the beautiful late summer and fall put a substantial stress on the community. The argument is that these festivals are necessary to help fund Park District programs and thus keep them affordable to the public. It should be apparent that relying on private interests to fund public parks is fiscally unsound. Private entities can decide to pull out at any time. This is clearly evident in the actions of the Chicago Bear football team. The Park District has no leverage over for-profit festivals. They can decide to move at any time. Their decisions are based completely on self-interest. Chicago is a world-class city with billions of dollars in revenue. Our parks deserve to be fully funded with public funds. Is the Park District engaged with the city government to ensure that our parks are fully funded? How can non-for-profit organizations, community groups, and others help to make sure that the city
30 seconds remaining.
funds our parks? Okay, thank you for listening. And I have to say, I'm encouraged and optimistic about the it's not newly formed, but the changes in the park board. And I do hope we can work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. We'll release you from the call and you may rejoin the meeting through one of those links provided. And we'll get our last speaker today on the line, Leslie Recht.
Hello?
Hi, is this Leslie?
It is.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I'm just fine.
Okay, great. You are live at the Chicago Park District Board meeting. You may present your comments to the board now.
Thank you. My name is Leslie Recht. I'm the president of the Grant Park Advisory Council. I have 2 items I'd like to mention today. The first is that the Grant Park has had 5 vacancies in their personnel. 2 of them last September were posted, and then 3 more. And the real problem is that the park can't serve the users, the residents, if these positions aren't filled. Now, I understand that the Park District is undergoing some changes, but it's the end of January. I've just been informed that a couple of these positions have finally been set up for interviews, and we're going to watch this closely. But I would like the board to know, and we've of course been talking to the wonderful Park District employees about this. This is a very serious situation. We know that it's across the Park District, but we want to urge you to make sure that these positions are filled and that the users at the parks are serviced. The second item I wanted to mention, there's a private contractor, MBRE, that oversees work in Maggie Daley Park, and we've had ongoing issues as the advisory council with MBRE. We had no information from them about their budget.
30 seconds remaining.
We asked them for the last several years to give us information, and they've refused. So we had to file a FOIA to find out what they were asking for from the Park District. We're looking at some of that information now, but the problem is that they are not responsive to the advisory council. They don't appear at our meetings. They're not working with the park supervisor and putting their budgets together, and there's no transparency. And
Please
this is an ongoing contract. So our request is that a process be set up so that the park supervisor, the advisory council, and the Park District, that we can all work together more closely with MBRE and get a better handle on what they're doing, what they're asking for, and what they should be asking for as priorities for Maggie Daley Park. We believe with the new superintendent and the changes at the Park District, it's time for this contract to be reviewed and a new process be put in place. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leslie. We'll release you from the call and you may rejoin the meeting through one of those links provided. And that was our final speaker today.
Thank you to all of our speakers. Your comments have been received and someone will be reaching out to you to address your concerns where appropriate. We will now proceed with the remaining agenda items for today. Under unfinished business, there is nothing to present. First, under new business from the Law Department, authority to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Chicago and various federal, state, and local government agencies to accept the transfer of various funds and services for park projects. I think we will hear from Senior Counsel Joseph Bornstein regarding this matter.
Thank you. Good afternoon, VP King, Commissioners, Interim Superintendent. I am Joseph Bornstein, Senior Counsel for the Chicago Park District. This is an omnibus bill. Some of you have seen it before. This is the authority to enter into intergovernmental agreements with the City of Chicago, state and county agencies for us to receive money. Now, for the in the Chicago Park District Code, there is no board authority about receiving funds. When you have to expend funds, there is authority, but you have none to actually accept them. Now, the problem that we have is that sometimes the other agencies we work with require an authorization for us to take that money. And we do this quite a bit. We get a lot of grants. There are quite a bit of, as we said, we have TIFs, we have open space impact fees, we have menu programs, anything like that. So you're talking about a lot of different items, and some of them are kind of small dollar amounts to much larger dollar amounts, and from various agencies. One of the things we've changed, and this has been an annual item that we've brought to the board every year, is that we've added the federal government because we actually had an issue with the federal government where they asked for explicit authorization to grant us some funds, and we didn't have it, so we've added them onto this. So what it does is then it gives the superintendent and directors the authorization to enter into these agreements and to accept the money. It's just for this year. We do it annually, and if there's any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
Are there any questions? If there are no questions, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Will the secretary please take a roll call for the adoption of the matter?
Of course. Commissioner Edwards?
Aye.
Commissioner Netsky?
Aye.
Commissioner Munoz?
Aye.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Aye.
Commissioner Valle?
Aye.
And Vice President King?
Aye.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
Thank
Next.
you, everybody.
Great. Thank you. Next, from the Director of Planning and Construction, change order 01, not to exceed $458,505.30 to Structures Construction, LLC for restoration of the Revere Park Fieldhouse and Clubhouse specification number P-16008-027. Heather Gleason, our Director of Planning and Construction, will address the commissioners on this matter.
Thank you, Vice President King. Good afternoon, commissioners. As Vice President King mentioned, this is a recommendation for a change order with the contract for Structures Construction. Sarah, if you could go to the next slide, we'll show a little bit about the park that we're talking about here. So Revere Park is located in the Irving Park community area. It's on the northwest side of the city. It's at 2509 West Irving Park Road. And the next slide will show us an aerial of Revere Park. So Irving Park Road is to the north, or the top of the image. Campbell Street is to the east and the right. And then there's a manufacturing facility to the west and south of our property that borders our park here. If you can go to the next slide, Sarah. So this just shows you a little bit of the existing conditions. There's actually two buildings that make up Revere Park. One is our field house, and the other is referred to as the clubhouse, which we lease to the Boys and Girls Club for their activities. The field house was built in 1931 and the clubhouse was built in 1957. And if we could go to the next slide. We actually were able to secure a $7.5 million TIF allocation to renovate both of these buildings, which included such improvements as adding an elevator for ADA accessibility, improving ramps and stairs, as well as restrooms, new windows, doors, and a roof, among other improvements. You'll see that some of that work to date on the slide has already been done. So the elevator, you can see in the left-hand image, is under construction there. And in the middle is a brick mock-up, which is something that we have our contractors do with any facade improvements, especially on our older buildings like this one. So we want to make sure that whatever they're proposing is actually historically accurate to what is there currently. So that's just something that we do before they do the construction. There are two things that are actually necessitating our change order that's before you. First, we were able to secure some really good bids on construction for this project. So we had originally narrowed the scope, fearing that we weren't going to have enough enough of our 7.5 million to do all of this work. But when the bids came in, we were actually able to get a bid for 4.5 million for this work. So since we have 7.5 million in TIF, we actually have more dollars that we can spend. So we're adding some scope to this project with this change order. Some of the scope that we're adding includes additional carpentry on the job, repairing existing flooring that we weren't able to include the first time, upgrading more mechanical, electrical, and plumbing work, improving some paving outside of the clubhouse to make better accessible entrances, and then we're also adding some more outdoor bike racks for our patrons to use. The second part of the change order actually includes a stop work order on the job due to a labor dispute, which is pretty rare for us to happen, actually. We had a claim that our contractor was not paying prevailing wage, which is set by the state of Illinois, and it is a requirement of any contractor's contract with us. We asked our inspector general auditor to do a full investigation, and which they did, and they found that they actually were paying prevailing wage rates and found no wrongdoing on behalf of Structures LLC. The stop work order, however, did cause about a 6-month delay on the job, which resulted in material price increases, winterization costs, increased labor costs, and remobilization costs to get the work done. The good news is that we can now proceed with additional scope on the job, and we do have additional TIF funding that will help pay for this work. Of the $458,505.30 on this change order, the contractor is able to provide 74.43% in dollars that are going to minority-owned businesses on the job, and 8.82% going to women-owned businesses on the job. So their overall MBE and WBE participation as a result of this work actually went up. So originally they were at our regular 25.5, and with this job, they were able to increase it to 30% MBE and 5.5% WBE. I'll stop there, and then I'm happy to take your questions.
Hi, this is Commissioner Valle. I actually live across the street from Revere, so I'm excited to see the plans. In the budgets, is the landscaping going to be restored and the fields?
So right now, this work includes the buildings work. So the outdoor work and the paving is something that is really incorporated into the parking lot. But anytime that we are doing work in a park, some of our landscaping does get damaged. And so our contractor is required to then go back in and fix anything that, say, they rolled a truck over, our grass, or we, hit a shrub or something like that. That's always part of our construction work, is to restore the park to its original beautiful condition.
And have we dipped into the contingency budget?
We have spent some of the contingency, but this actually, because it wasn't included in the contract the first time, is why we have to come back for a change order. So sometimes we can use contingency, but the scope and nature of this work was such that it really necessitated a change to the overall contract, and that's why it's before you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Commissioner, you're good with that brick mock-up? Because, you're going to have to live with that, seeing that every day. Are there any other questions or comments? Is there a motion?
I motion.
Second.
Will the secretary please take a roll call for the adoption of this matter?
Yes, of course. Commissioner Edwards?
Aye.
Commissioner Natzke?
Aye.
Commissioner Munoz?
Aye.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Aye.
Commissioner Valle?
Aye.
And Vice President King?
Aye.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
Next, also from the Director of Planning and Construction, the request to initiate the 45-day notice period to rename Colmar Park in honor of Gertrude Colmar. Heather Gleason will again address the commissioners.
Thank you, Vice President King. Yes, this, as you heard from some of our previous speakers this morning, is a 45-day notice period to rename our existing Colmar Park in honor of Gertrude Colmar. So we go to the next slide, Sarah. We'll just show you where Colmar Park is located. It's again on the northwest side of the city at 4143 North Colmar Avenue. So just for a little bit of context, it's kind of east of Cicero Avenue and south of the Kennedy Expressway. If we could go to the next slide. And this is an aerial of the current park. Colmar Park was actually named after the street that it resides on in Chicago, which, as you heard from some of our speakers, was actually named after the original town of Colmar that was on the border with France and Germany. Next slide, please. Gertrude Colmar was born in Berlin in 1894 as the eldest of 4 children in a Jewish family of Polish descent. Gertrude began writing poetry at a young age, though she resisted publishing her work out of a sense that it wasn't adequate. It was, in fact, her father who submitted her poems to a publishing house, resulting in the publication of her first volume of poetry in 1917. Throughout the following years, Gertrude continued to write poetry while she worked as a teacher and studied several different languages. In the late 1920s, her poems were often published in various literary journals and anthologies. It wasn't until 1936 that Gertrude participated in a reading of women's prose that she began to gain recognition for her works in literary circles, though she remained largely unknown to the general public. Gertrude left teaching in 1928 to care for her sick mother, and she remained at home assisting and later caring for her father after her mother's death. She continued to write and publish some more poetry, a selection of poems in a literary journal in 1936, and a volume of poetry in 1938. However, in the late 1930s, Jewish life was increasingly constrained under Nazi control. Her siblings fled Germany, but she passed an opportunity to flee to England in order to continue caring for their father. Despite the harsh conditions, Gertrude continued to write, particularly poetry, and used her writing as a means to express both her sadness and powerlessness towards her oppression, but also her hope for humanity. She also continued to correspond with numerous family members and friends, and it is said that her letters displayed an inner strength and reserve in the face of intensifying oppression. After the November 1938 pogrom known as Kristallnacht, she sent much of her writings to her sister and brother-in-law in Switzerland and to a cousin for safekeeping. In 1941, she was forced to work in a German armaments factory, and in 1943, she was sent to Auschwitz, where she died. After the war, her brother-in-law spearheaded the effort to collect and publish her writings. Posthumous publications of her writings beginning in 1947 and acclaimed through subsequent decades, and her work continues to draw acclaim today. Her surviving work includes 450 poems, 3 plays, and 2 short stories. Today, Gertrude Colmar is recognized as one of the most important women poets in German literature. As you heard from our speakers earlier, we have lots of public support already for this proposal from community groups, including but not limited to the Old Irving Park Association, the Polish Museum of America, Dankhaus, the German American Cultural Association, State Senator Sarah Feigengols, and State Senator Christina Passion-Zayas. And many, many residents have also signed a petition in favor of the naming, which are included with your board materials. Again, this action opens the 45-day public comment period, so we will bring this proposal back in April once the comment period has passed. That concludes this presentation. I'm happy to take any questions you have.
Are there any questions or comments from the commissioners?
I don't have any questions, but I just want to say I actually appreciate hearing from community members in that section of our agenda every time, because that's what we want. We want community involved. We want to hear from the voice. We want to be part of community and have a pulse on what's going on. I have to say that the work that was done on this project was well vetted. It has large community support. It's not far from where I live, and I also think that this could be something beautiful for the parks and can bring community together. So I very much support this.
Thank you. If there are no more comments or questions, may I ask for a motion?
So move.
Second.
Thank you. Will the secretary take a roll call for the adoption of the matter?
Yes, of course. Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
Commissioner Netsky.
Aye.
Commissioner Munoz.
Aye.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Aye.
Commissioner Valle.
Aye.
And Vice President King.
Aye.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
Last, under new business, the authority to amend the contract with the interim general superintendent, Rosa Escareno, to extend the term of service. The current employment contract will terminate on January 31st, and the amendment to the contract allows for an additional 3-month term beginning February 1st and ending on April 30th. The amendment will also allow for any additional extension or renewal of the contract upon mutual agreement of the parties. I'd like to point out to the commissioners that the rationale for extending this contract goes beyond the impending expiration of the current contract. As we witnessed earlier in this presentation, the interim general superintendent has done a stellar job since her arrival. Also, it is important that we provide the interim general superintendent time to implement the plan for the new Office of Prevention and Accountability that she explained earlier today. Interim General Counsel Erica Saltzman is here to answer any questions that the commissioners may have regarding this matter. Are there questions? If there are no questions, I'd ask for a motion.
So moved.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Will the secretary please take a roll call for the adoption of the matter?
Yes, I will. Commissioner Edwards,
Aye.
Commissioner Munoz,
Aye.
Commissioner Netsky,
Aye.
Commissioner Hamilton,
Aye.
Commissioner Valle,
Aye.
and Vice President King.
Aye.
The motion carried and the matter is adopted.
Thank you. At this time, we will go into closed session to consider various matters appropriately discussed in closed session pursuant to 5 Illinois CS 120, Section 2, subsection C, 1 and 21. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. The meeting is now in executive session. Motion, any against? Motion carried. We are now returning to open session. The Board of Commissioners met in closed session to discuss matters appropriately discussed in closed session pursuant to 5 Illinois CS 120, Section 2, subsection C and 21, and had the following matters of new business regarding the following matters. The board reviewed executive session minutes for the release of minutes for public inspection pursuant to 55 Illinois CS 120, Section 2, subsection C21, and discussed the release of the following dates: June 9th, 2021, July 16th, 2021, September 8th, 2021, October 8th, 2021, October 13th, 2021, November 2nd, 2021, and November 10th, 2021. Is there a motion to release these minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Will the secretary please take a roll call for the adoption of this matter?
Yes, of course. Commissioner Edwards?
Aye.
Commissioner Netsky?
Aye.
Commissioner Munoz?
Aye.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Aye.
Commissioner Valle?
Aye.
And Vice President King?
Aye.
Motion carried and the matter is adopted.
And that concludes the board meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Great. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Any against? Great. The motion is carried. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all very much for your participation.
Have a great day.